Please support Vlad Nerd. Thank you. My dear nerds, there's one thing that annoys the living poop out of me, and it should annoy the living poop out of you as well. And that is the million of handhelds that get released year on year. And I know what you're gonna say, Vlad, how dare you say this? It's good that we have options. And I agree with you to an extent. It's good that we have options, but due to the rapid nature of the many handhelds that get released, we tend to forget about the actual good models that were released in the meantime. You see, our attention spans aren't the best. You know, we live in a world with short form content and with TikTok and with a million retro channels. And we sometimes tend to forget what is actually important in, of course, the context is our little handheld bubble, is that people just stop and they learn how to properly choose a handheld that they can enjoy. Or in case you have a handheld that you enjoy, don't FOMO yourself to death and don't feel like you have to buy a million of them. So that's the point of my video. I actually wanted us to take another look at the Anbernic RG556. But before I continue, my dear nerds, I just want to quickly mention that this particular Anbernic RG556 unit was sent to me by, wait for it, AliExpress themselves. So AliExpress, you're awesome, send me more review devices in the future. But as always, my dear nerds, it's very important for you to know that nobody had a say in this video, nobody saw this video beforehand, no money exchanged hands, all thoughts here are my own. So, knowing this, let's talk about this thing and those other little brethren of this handheld that I have on the table. And I assume you know about this handheld because it's been released a year ago, or you know, a million years ago in terms of handheld years. And because of this, everyone seems to have stopped talking about it, and nobody gives a freaking poop about this. They just want to toss it aside and wait for the new fancy thing. But that's kind of the thing. The new fancy thing in our niche is all relative, my dear nerds. I could tell you about the fact that each subsequent model could be newer to make you click those affiliate links and to, you know, buy a million handhelds and end up with a huge collection of them, but I'm not gonna. I just want to make sure that you get a proper one. And this tiny pool of Android Anbernic devices is the perfect way in which I can convey my argument to you. You see, all of these newer devices, meaning the RG406H, which is one of the last Anbernic devices that were released last year, and the RG Cube and the RG556, well, they all share the same specifications, more or less. They share the same SoC, they share the same amount of RAM, the same amount of internal storage. And this is very important because if you don't know this, you might think that this is the old one, because technically the RG556 was the first Anbernic handheld from this new line of Anbernic Android devices with the T820 SoC under the hood. So this basically means that irregardless of when they were released, they have the same exact performance. And you don't have a meaningful performance difference between them to actually justify choosing one over the other, except when it comes, in my opinion, to three main things. One is the screen itself, and here I think the Anbernic RG556 needs to get a huge round of applause because it's the only Anbernic with an OLED screen. The RG406H, which I love because it has a 4:3 aspect ratio screen. You see, my dear nerds, this isn't really a very big quality screen. It's an IPS and the colors aren't really as vibrant as they should be. In fact, I would say that there's a clear yellow tint to this display, but hey, this is a 4x3 device, so it still has a place in this world. However, this has a place as well because the Anbernic RG556, as you know, has a 16:9 aspect ratio screen, which is perfect for PSP and even PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 because the emulators that we use for those have very good widescreen hacks. So instead of having a PlayStation 2 game in its native 4x3 aspect ratio like Legacy of Kain Defiance here, which looks very nice in 4x3, you would have it look like this in 16:9. But what you need to know is that this is a very good, let's say, compromise because you're not stretching the image, you're not mutilating the image. This is still integer scaled because they just expanded how much of the game you see at any given time. So you get to enjoy this as if it were its native freaking aspect ratio. And I think this is a very good argument to make when it comes to playing PlayStation 2 or even PlayStation 1 on something that isn't 4x3. Not to mention the fact that this is an OLED, just look at the screen differences here. You know, and you can plainly see the yellow tint that I mentioned on the RG406H. Maybe it's just my unit, I don't know, but yeah, the image should look more like this and less like that, in my opinion. So when it comes to more modern platforms that we tend to emulate, like PlayStation 2 or even Wii, because these can actually do a little bit of Wii, the aspect ratio argument that I kept clenching on with my teeth, well, that doesn't really apply here. It more applies when it comes to old games like NES, which are forced in a 4x3 aspect ratio. However, my dear nerds, this isn't the most important thing that I think should be mentioned about the RG556. That's not its saving grace. The OLED is not its saving grace. What is its saving grace, however, is the freaking ergonomics. Look, I cannot convey this to you because on camera this doesn't look like anything special. You see these bumpers and triggers and they are impossible to distinguish on why these would be different than these, for example. You know, you look at them, they seem kind of identical, but they are not. My dear nerds, I cannot understate this. I know this will be a very controversial statement, but this is the most comfortable handheld that I ever got my hands on. And I don't mean metaphorically, I mean period. It's more comfortable than the Retroid Pocket 5. Of course, when it comes to that, I complained about the 5 not having good ergonomics, but not only is it more comfortable than those, it's more comfortable than anything else. You know, I would actually go one step above and say that it's even more comfortable than an Xbox-like controller. An Xbox-like controller, this is an Easy SMX controller, by the way, it's a very good controller. I use this on the daily when I play on the PC, but this somehow feels less ergonomically great than the freaking RG556. And it's kind of hypocritical for me to say this because I trashed the poop out of this handheld when it was first released. I wasn't impressed by it. I saw the specs, I was like, this ain't it, you know? But in hindsight, now that I have it in my hands, and granted, everybody had it in their hands by this point, I can appreciate the overall ergonomics of this. It's simply a handheld that I know I can play for hours and not feel cramped or tired. My wrists would be comfortable and normal. If we were to compare this to how I feel when I play on the Retroid Pocket 5, this wins hands down. Granted, I don't want people to think I'm glazing this handheld. I'm not doing that. This is weaker than the Retroid Pocket 5. But you know what? I propose we don't look at performance benchmarks. These are single-purpose devices. All handhelds are single-purpose devices, just like me. You know, I'm, I'm here with a single purpose, to have you understand which handheld would be better for you. And also, I hope I gain your love with this. You know, I spent so much time doing this. I think I deserve a hug. Please, I feel lonely. But while this is not as performant as something like the Retroid Pocket 5, it has enough performance to play almost all PlayStation 2 games at the very least a 1.25x resolution, which is actually pretty decent. And most games you get to play at 1.5x. And again, all of these have the same performance. You don't need to ask yourself, maybe this one is more performant, or the RG Cube might be more performant, or whatever. No, all of these are the same thing in different casings. That's how you need to see them. However, if I were to choose one of these three for PSP, the RG556 is, in my opinion, the clear winner, if only for the ergonomics alone. Let's simply ignore it doesn't have an OLED screen. The ergonomics by themselves makes this. I can't describe how nice it is to feel this in the hand. Giggity. And I feel like we all collectively think that this is an old handheld. Again, it's as old as both of these others. It's just that simple. It's just that a lot of retro YouTubers, you know, we tend to concentrate on what appears and the new models that come out. I think people, if they buy the right handheld, they can simply stop. And out of these three, depending on which kind of emulating nerd you might be, the RG556 might be exactly what you want to have on a coffee table or on the nightstand. Notice how I didn't say in your pocket, because this is not a pocket handheld. I want to make this very clear. This isn't a handheld that you should dream of having in your pocket. You know, I never encourage people to give up hope. That's kind of not my thing, but if you want to put this in your pocket, you should give up hope. Don't even try. Don't you waste the energy. You're just gonna be disappointed. This lives in your backpack, nightstand, or coffee table, or couch, wherever you might want a big, comfortable ergonomics boy like this to sit. And for the people that are about to tell me, Vlad, but the sticks on the RG556, they are terrible, they do cardinal snapping. Vlad, are you a shill? Are you a sellout? Why are you ignoring the sticks? No, I'm not freaking ignoring the sticks, my dear nerd. I just think the cardinal snapping thing isn't that important. People, you know what, I'm just gonna say it. When the PlayStation 2 got launched, it had poopy controllers. It had very horrible controllers. The sticks themselves, they do the job. Most people wouldn't even notice the cardinal snapping. I sure as heck do not really notice it unless I stream games. So if you want to use Moonlight or GeForce Now, I will say that these sticks get the job done, but if you want something truly precise, truly very sensitive, where you can be very careful with your aim and blah blah blah, then yeah, these sticks, well, they got some criticism for a reason. They aren't that sensitive. You see, I'm trying to have Kane move very slowly, and it's a pain in the backside. You see, I can do it, but I have to concentrate on doing it. Whereas the sticks on the RG406H, well, they allow me to do this with way more precision. But these are also taller, so choose your devil and stick with it, you know? However, when it comes to the overall experience, on a couch, this is nice, but I see myself using this more on a bus. You know, when I have to travel between cities, because I'm one of those people that still doesn't have a car. I know I'm a freaking heathen. But on a bus, you get to chill and play with a handheld like this. At home, you get to simply relax and absorb that OLED with a handheld like this, while still not ruining your freaking hands and not becoming a cartoonist, while not flexing your wrists like heck, like how we're supposed to do with the Retroid Pocket 5. So in a way, this is a very easy choice for a lot of people because it has ergonomics and an OLED, and not a lot of handhelds, not at this price range at least, give you this. So yeah, this is my rant on the RG556. This has its place. Is it the best handheld? Well, not really, but there's a market for it. There's a segment of people that this specific one is designed for. You know, people, I don't think they will care about the sticks. I think we as a whole group, as a tribe, we kind of made the whole stick issue a bit overblown. It's like YouTubers have nothing to complain about and they create an issue. That's exactly what it is, actually. But when it comes to these three, all I can say is, for the home, this one, for traveling, this one, and if you're a heathen and you don't play Pico 8 but you still want a 1x1 screen, get this one. The cube is very good if you're like me and you don't mind using stretch to fit. If you don't mind using stretch to fit, then this is a very good handheld. However, these two, I think, are more or less the real choice. 4x3 versus 16x9. OLED versus IPS. Just look at the colors here. Do you see the vast difference between the two? So, my dear nerds, and by the way, it amused me how technically the release cycle is Anbernic released the RG556 first, the Cube afterwards, and somewhere down the line they released the RG406H. I like how they went from the design with the vent on top to the vent in the back then, and then they were like, you know what, let's go back to vent on top. So there was clearly a regression in cooling design at one point. I'm curious to ever find out why they moved away from this, but I digress. My dear nerds, this is my video to you to have you not forget about the handhelds that we currently have on the market, which you can find good discounts for because they've been on the market for quite a while, which might satisfy your needs. You might not need any other handhelds if you truly pick the right one for you. So yeah, you're gonna have links to all of these handhelds in my video description. They will all point to AliExpress because AliExpress actually sent me the RG556 a few months ago. I just wanted to find a proper context for us to talk about it, and I needed the experience with this handheld before I felt confident enough to talk about this with you fine nerds. You know, at the end of the day, it's a good middle ground between a lot of things. Do not forget about this, do not FOMO yourself. into thinking these are old. They are not, and I have a strange feeling, in fact I have a conviction, that in 2025, no matter how much more performant the new devices might be, we won't be able to emulate anything extra on Android than we can on these devices right here. So, I hope this conversation was a nice one. I loved it. And tell me what you think. Do you feel like you might want an RG556? Do you feel like you hated this? Did you have one and it disappointed you? Do you still use it to this day? Leave your feedback in the comments below. I'm actually curious. For me, the RG556 taught me that everything old is not really old, and just as we should all learn, everything old can become new again. And that's the main takeaway of this, my dear nerds. I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.